The book was edited during the time of Prophet Muhammad. How? Now, before I go to that, I would like to discuss what we mean by editing. What actually triggered this lecture was that I was going through one of these Facebook pages or walls or posts written by someone. Then I saw something that was posted, like the only book that has never been edited in history is the Qur'an. Then I was wowed, like, can this be true? Is that possible to have a book as old as 1,400 years and more, and it remains unedited up to date? But that is not true about the Quran. We do not try to use false means to call people into our religion. It is wrong. If you are using false means to call people to propagate your religion, it means your religion is standing on a baseless foundation, on a false foundation, and it is bound to collapse at any time. So please share this program. Before we move on, let us all share the program and let us invite our friends to join us on this program. So I was like, why would people be lying? All in the attempt of propagating Islam, all in the attempt of calling people towards that beautiful religion that we call Islam. It is a lie to say that the Quran has never been edited. It is either the person intended to lie, or that person doesn't understand the history of the compilation of the Quran, or the person just decided to be living in the world of fantasy. The Quran has been edited not even twice, and I will give you all the instances of the editing. But before that, let us try to understand that editing does not always mean correction of errors in a book. To say a book has been edited, it doesn't mean errors were there originally and those errors were now either deleted or corrected. That is not the meaning of editing. Whenever you modify, even if it is a letter that is being modified in a book, it is editing. It is called editing. Let me give you an instance. There's what we call Indo-Arabic numerals. Excuse me. Indo-Arabic numerals are all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Originally, these Indo-Arabic numerals were digits that encode number of angles. They stand or depict number of angles. Originally, 0 would be written with no angle, and that is why it is called 0, no angle. Number 1 would be written with a single angle. Just one angle in that digit means it is 1. 2 will be a digit with 2 angles. Number 3, a digit with 3 angles. Open it. Number 4, a digit with 4 angles, etc. But later on, these digits were modified. They became modified, that it is not necessary that these digits depict number of angles before we communicate our aim, our objective. So they became modified. Nowadays, those digits no longer depict number of angles. So you can write number 9 with only 1 angle or even nil. You can imagine a situation whereby you have to write, you want to write 999, and you are to write 9 angles in each of the digits. That makes 27 angles. Simply because you want to write 999, you are writing compulsorily 27 angles. That is a whole lot of inconvenience. So things are usually modified or edited for purpose of convenience. That is the same case why the Quran had passed through series of editing stages in order to make it convenient for users. Not only for non-Arab speaking nations, even for the Arab themselves. They will also derive a whole lot of convenience when the Quran became edited. If you know the kind of Quran that they read during the time of Prophet Muhammad, if you see that kind of manuscript, that kind of Quran that was in use during the time of Muhammad, you would agree with me nonetheless that indeed the Quran had been edited. It is far from what you have then in terms of those letters. The letters had been modified to what we have nowadays. Why? For convenience. It's for the convenience of the users. So now we have 6 types of editing. I'm going to state 6 types of editing, and I will submit that 3 of these types can be found in the Quran or in the history of the compilation of the Quran. Now, the first one I'm going to cite is developmental editing. Developmental editing. So when it is also called conceptual editing, or you call it manuscript appraisal. Manuscript appraisal. That is one type of editing, developmental editing. A developmental editor would not introduce any other writing into that book. It's not going to introduce anything into the book. You get what I'm saying? No writing of anything new, no rewriting of anything. All they have to do is to organize what you have written, the ideas, to structure the content. They can also remove irrelevant materials if necessary. So that is what developmental editing is all about. Now, in developmental editing, they don't do anything like writing new things in the book or rewriting anything. All they do is to rearrange and organize the book. Rearrange or organize the book for convenience of the users, to make users of the book to enjoy the book. So this kind of editing happens in the Quran. Developmental editing, it happens with the Quran. The content were ordered, were rearranged in order to suit the convenience of users. So I will still cite the examples. Now let me go to the second type of editing. We have evaluation editing, also known as manuscript critique or structural edit. So this type of editing needs a finished manuscript. You must have completed your manuscript before you submit it to an evaluation editor. So what is the function of the evaluation editor? Is going to assess the structure, the flow, the quality, and the completeness of the book. So you must have finished everything, then you submit it so that they assess whether it is quality, they assess the quality, the completeness, the flow of that book. Evaluation editing. Now the third one is content editing. Content editing, also known as substantive editing or full editing. Here, the editor digs into the words on the pages of the book. the editor provides paragraph level set. And okay, from here to here should be a paragraph. Here to here should be a paragraph. The editor also advises on smoothing the flow of the book, construction of your of chapters, of sections and subsections. So this also happened in the Quran by the Prophet himself. When the Quran was revealed by the angel from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verses of the Quran, it is the Prophet that will advise where a verse will be placed in the book. The Prophet will tell the Sahaba, so verse that is being revealed now, please write it among so verse that was revealed so number of days ago. You know, the Quran was not revealed in a day. It wasn't a completed work that was revealed just in a day. It came as bits of information, little by little, over a duration of, some people say 20 years, some say 23 years, and some say more. If some say 25. So because scholars do not reach consensus on the number of years the Prophet spent in Mecca. Some are saying he spent 9, some are saying he spent 10, some are saying he spent 11, some are saying he spent 13, some are saying he spent more. So depending on the number of years, so the Quran at least was revealed for 20 years. So a book, you can imagine a book that was compiled over a duration of 20 years. A book that was compiled over a duration, over a period of 20 years. So it was revealed bit by bit. Now, when some verses are revealed, the Prophet will now tell them that verse that was just revealed, go and write it among surat or among so number of verses, join it together. So he's the one that will determine for them where the verses would be written. That is part of editing. What he was doing at that moment is editing. It's editing. That is what we call content editing. When you are moving content to different chapters. Do you know that if the Quran was to be arranged according to the way it was revealed, this is not the order we are going to have. This is not the order we are going to have. Now, what is the order we are going to have? Assuming the Quran was revealed, was ordered and was written in accordance with how it was revealed. Now, this is the order we are going to have. Now, in chapter 1 of the book, we are going to have Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqa, etc. Okay, and it's going to stop at allama al insana ma lam ya'lam. That will have been the first chapter. But those other verses in that Surah Al-Alaq were not revealed the very first day that the Quran was revealed. Starting from Inna al-insana la yatagha ar-ra'ahu istaghna. All those verses that were joined together in that chapter were not revealed together with these few number of verses in the beginning of the chapter. They did not come on the same day. They did not come the same month. Now, what chapter will have followed? Will have Surah to Nun. Nun wal Qalam. Wama yasturun. That will have been the second chapter of the Quran, assuming the Quran was arranged in order of its revelation. And not even the whole chapter would follow. Now, as chapter 3, we will have Ya ayyuhal muzammil, kumil, etc. That is what we are going to have as chapter 3. Chapter 4 will have been Ya ayyuhal mudaththir. That will have been chapter 4. Chapter 5 will have been Tabbat yada abi lahbin. Chapter 6 will have been Idha shamsu kuwira. That chapter, Idha shamsu kuwira, will have been the 6th chapter of the Quran, assuming the Quran was arranged in order of its revelation. Then chapter 7 will have been Sabbi Isma Rabbikal A'la, etc. Chapter 8 will have been Alam Nashra Laka Sadrak. Chapter 9 will have been Wal Asr, Innal Insan, etc. Chapter 10 will have been Wal Fajr, Wal Layalin Ashir. Chapter 11 will have been Wadu'a, Wal Layli Idha Saja. Chapter 12 will have been Wal Layl Idha Yagsha. The 13th chapter will have been Wal Adiyat Dab'a. The 14th chapter will have been Inna Atoinaka Al-Kawthar. The 15th chapter will have been Alaakumu At-Takasur. The 16th chapter will have been Ara'ayta Alladhi Yukadhibu Bidin. The 17th chapter will have been Kuliya Ayyuhal Kafirun. And you can imagine this Kuliya Ayyuhal Kafirun, which will have been the 17th chapter, was now in the Quran we are carrying. It is currently the chapter 109 of the Quran. You can imagine, from 17 to 109. So that is because the Prophet himself was an editor of the Quran in terms of content editing. So to now be saying the Quran is the only book in the world that has never been edited, you are overhyping the Quran. To say the Quran had been edited doesn't discredit the value of the holy book. It doesn't demean the book. It doesn't make it an unholy book. It doesn't make it a useless book. It doesn't make it an error-prone book. It doesn't make it a human-made book. It is still the words and book of Allah, Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You do not call to your religion using false means and false information. So that is one type of editing. Now, as I was saying, another type of editing is line editing, also known as stylistic edit or comprehensive edit. Now, in this type of editing, the editor will look at your words, your wordings, and is going to select your words. So it's an editing based on word choice of words. You shouldn't have, if you have used certain words, then this paragraph will have been shorter. So the line editor tends to shorten your sentences. That if you have used this kind of words, then you wouldn't have need this large number of words in this paragraph. So it tends to reduce, the line editing tends to reduce the number of words you have used after you must have finished your manuscript. You understand? So what you should have said in 5 words and you are using 15 words, the line editor is going to edit that for you. Now, this doesn't happen in the Quran. There's nothing like line editing in the Quran. The Quran was perfectly revealed. Now, another type of editing is copy editing. Copy editing. What does a copy editor do? A copy editor looks at the mistakes in your grammar, your vocabulary usage, the grammatical rules. Whether you have committed blunder in your grammar, the copy editor check for that. Your spellings, your punctuations. This doesn't happen in the Quran because the Quran was perfectly revealed. Now, the last type of editing is proofreading. Proofreading. So a proofreader does the greatest task by looking for any error, like typo errors, the errors that were classified as typographical error, the typos. So a proofreader checks for all the typos. So any mistake in typing, any mistake in the spellings, so the work of a proofreader is even higher than the copy editor. So the percentage of errors that will be checked by a copy editor is as high as 85%, while a proofreader will check the errors up to 100%. So some errors might still be escaped or overlooked or ignored unknowingly by a copy editor, but a proofreader would always notice such errors. This also doesn't happen with the Quran, because that shows that the Quran was indeed a holy book. Because without any proofreader, without any copy editor, up to today, all Arab grammarians, all Arab orators, they did not find a single error, grammatical error in the Quran. Kabirullah. Now let me talk about all the types of editing that we have in the Quran. Now I said we have content editing in the Quran. The Prophet did content editing himself. I have explained that before. That verses, the ordering of verses of the Quran was done by the Prophet. He gave them an instruction on how they are going to order all the verses. So the verses were arranged not in accordance with the revelation, but in accordance with the instruction of the prophet. So the ordering of verses is prophetic in nature. The prophet decides the arrangement of the verses. So that itself is an editing. It's an editing. That is number one. Now another type of editing is developmental editing, which was done by this. We have different types of developmental editing in the Quran. Most of it were done by the companions, the Sahaba. One of it is the arrangement of the chapters, not arrangement of verses, but arrangement of chapters. Every companion during the time of Muhammad, those companions that wrote the Quran, each one of them wrote a copy of the Quran based on his own discretion. The ordering of the chapters were based on their individual discretion. Now I will give you an instance of that. In the Mus'haf, that is a compilation of Quran that was done by Imam Ali, who happened to be a cousin of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ordering of the chapters, how the chapters were ordered, were arranged, goes as follow. In the first chapter in Ali's Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah happens to be chapter 1 in Ali's Quran. Chapter 2, Surah Yusuf. Chapter 3, Surah Al-Ankabut. 4, Surah Rum. 5, Luqman. 6, Surah Hamim, Sajda, etc. So, and the last chapter in its own is still Al-Ma'uzatain, Surah An-Nas, Falaki An-Nas. So I can go on and on to tell you all the arrangement of chapters in Imam Ali's Mus'haf. Now you can see that this arrangement is not what we have in the arrangement of the Quran we are using presently. So I will still talk about how we come about the present ordering of the chapters. Now, before I go to that, let's talk about the ordering of chapters in the Mus'haf of Ubay ibn Ka'b. Ubay ibn Ka'b also wrote his own compilation. That is because they listen to the Quran not from hand to hand, but from the mouth of the prophet himself, and they wrote it down separately. So each one of them that wrote his own copy of the Quran, the ordering of the chapters were not ordered by the prophet. He only ordered the arrangement of the verses. So the Sahaba themselves, the companions, decided how they arrange their chapters. So they have differences in the arrangement of their chapters. It is also editing. In Ubay ibn Ka'b, in his own copy of the Quran, chapter 1 is Surah Al-Fatiha, chapter 2 is Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 3 Nisa, chapter 4 Al-Imran, 5 Al-An'am, 6 Al-Araf, 7 Al-Ma'idah, Now, with this 1 to 7, you can see a difference with what we have in the arrangement today, because Al-Ma'idah today is in chapter 5. In Ubay ibn Ka'b's copy, it happens to be in chapter 7. Even that Surah Al-Ma'idah of Ubay ibn Ka'b's copy of the Quran was mingled with Surah Yunus. So he combined Surah Yunus, the chapter of Yunus, with Surah Al-Ma'idah. And this was followed by Al-Anfal 9, Tawbah 10th, Hud 11th, Maryam. Surah to Maryam happens to be the 11th chapter in the copy of Ubay ibn Ka'b, and it goes and go on and on until it also ends with Surah to Nas. Total number of chapters in his own copy is 105. Now let's talk about the arrangement or ordering of chapters in Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's copy of the Quran. His own chapter 1, Baqarah, chapter 2, Nisa. All these two that I just mentioned, you can see there is a difference between it and what we have in our copy today. Chapter 3 is Ali Imran, chapter 4 is Alif Lam Mim Sod. Chapter 5, Al-An'am, chapter 6, Al-Ma'idah, 7, Yunus, 8, Bara'ah, 9, Na'al, 10th, Hud, 11th, Yusuf, 12th, Surah to Bani Israel. So this is another ordering. It also ends his own chapters with Surah Al-Ikhlas. Total number of chapters 108. Surah Al-Ikhlas happened to be the last in Abdullah bin Mas'ud's copy of the Quran. Now let's talk about that of Ibn Abbas. In his own, chapter 1 is Iqra, chapter 2 Nun, chapter 3 Wadu'a, chapter 4 Muzammil, chapter 5 Surah to Dar, chapter 6 Al-Fatiha, chapter 7 Tabati Yada, chapter 7. That same Tabati Yada that is now Quran chapter 111 in our own Quran, in Abdullah ibn Abbas copy, that chapter happens to be chapter 7. So his own copy ended also with Surah to Nas, total number of verses, total number of chapters 114. In Abdullah ibn Ja'far, in his own copy of the Quran, we also have Iqra as chapter 1. Meanwhile, the last chapter happens to be Surah Al-Ma'idah in his own copy. Total number of chapters 113. So the differences in this ordering of chapters is an indication of editing. It is an indication of what is defined as editing. So stop deceiving the masses by saying the Quran is the only book that has never been edited in history. You will have to define what you mean by your editing, if you want to say that. Because editing does not always mean correction of errors. A little rearrangement is also editing. Now another type is Basmala. The introduction of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in the Quran is an editing, if you don't know. Because originally, Basmala was never part of those chapters. The Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, they introduced Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim into the Quran in order to separate one chapter from another. With the exception of Surah Al-Fatiha, whereby Surah Al-Basmala is regarded, whereby Al-Basmala is regarded as verse 1. Every other chapters of the Quran, whereby you see Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it wasn't the Prophet Muhammad that put it there. And it was not based on his instruction. The Sahaba themselves, they deem it fit, they deem it necessary. That how are they going to indicate the end of a particular chapter from another? So they now thought, if they use something else that is not a verse from the Quran, then that would mean that they introduce something that is not part of the words of Allah into the Quran. They now decided to use Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which happened to be a verse in one of the chapters of the Quran. Innahu min Sulaiman wa innahu Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So they pick it from there and then use it as a